Welcome to Peer Check. I'm your host, Adam Keating, and today we're talking about the future of PLM. I'm joined today by Oleg Shilovitsky, who is the CEO and co-founder of OpenBOM and a prolific blogger with Beyond PLM. He's been building software products for the engineering, data management, and manufacturing space for the last 20 years, working with teams like Smart Team, Dassault Systems, Infobix, before it was acquired by Autodesk, all before starting OpenBOM. Oleg, welcome to the show.
Yes, nice to see you again, Adam. Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
Oleg, so I got to start with the blog because you told me beforehand how many blogs you've written, and I actually audibly gasped. 4,000 blogs since 2009 across Beyond PLM, OpenBOM. That is an incredible dedication to educating the industry. Why did you get into writing about PLM? Why do you care so much about PLM?
First of all, it's very inspiring to be around of people that building physical products. It was very kind of inspiring me for many years. My dad was mechanical engineer, so he was from the very early days. He was sort of showing me all the stuff that he was working on. And then I wanted to be an architect because of the same reason. I thought it's a physical object. So it's a very, very inspirational. But the blogging was a part of my work at Smart Team at the System. I was appointed CTO with the challenge how to communicate better what we do to our customers. So it's a kind of challenge, you build great technology, now go to customers and try to explain themselves. I was meeting tons of people back in those days, but then I thought, so how better educate people? Because I was going to meet people and then said, but we don't know this, we don't know that. And remember, it was back in 2008 and 8, 7, before, and the blogs were around, but in professional space, no one was kind of concerned. We need to do a blog. Companies didn't do blog. I remember the first time I asked, "Can I do a blog?" Someone's looking at me and says, "Do you want to share all our secrets on the blog?" So well, that's separate conversation. But somehow I passed through all these legal hurdles and everything. Back in the US, and so that was an idea how to share knowledge and how to share experience. And then I got into this because it basically was the way to communicate with people. And over these years, for example, now the conversation is moving heavily to LinkedIn. And it's so natural. You see a lot of professional people in LinkedIn, and they do care. And for example, I see your posts, and there are a lot of communications. But back in those days, it was not the case. LinkedIn was the place to store your resume at the best. No communication. So I've seen the blogs were places where people were collaborating. If you go back in 10 years old blogs, you will see dozens of comments on every blog. Now people don't do it because they prefer the same content, and share it in LinkedIn. And people are talking. Again, depends. The professional people are talking on LinkedIn. So yeah, that was just the way to start communication with people, and just continue. It's just a habit. So
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate it because I think I've learned a ton from the blog. I mean, that's how I found you.
Thank you.
I heard about you 5 years ago. They were like, "Do you know Oleg? He's the guy who writes the blog." And I was like, I have read his blog. I don't know him. And then I messaged you, and I was in Boston, and you met up with me. So I'll always appreciate you taking the time early on, because back in those days, it was hard to figure out, this big mystical landscape of CAD and PLM, and how does it all fit together? And it's always been interesting. And today we're talking about the future of PLM. I think we should start with where are we right now? I'd love to get your synopsis of what is this current state of PLM as it is today? Where are we? And then I know you got a whole bunch of thoughts about where we're going with openness and architecture and different systems. But how would you describe the state of PLM today?
Well, that's a great question, and answering on those questions are very hard. Usually, like it's a kind of questions that always ask. So where are we in PLM? I would say, let me improvise this morning. It's like just after my coffee. I think we're in a new normal. So I think we passed the idea that PLM is good, because again, like if I go back in the PLM is, do we need PLM or we don't need PLM? So that's kind of, if you go 10, 15 years ago, that's a small bunch of people were saying we need PLM, mostly for very large companies coming from defense, and everyone else said, I don't need PLM. I'm too small for PLM, or I'm good with PDM. Like SolidWorks back those days was very strong, saying like, you don't need PDM, PLM. You just do PDM. It's okay. It's like, remember, it's many years ago, like a strike advertising. They said it's toasted. So people said PDM is okay. You don't need PLM. But I think now it's more like people came to agreement, like we need PLM, right? So we need it because it's important, because it's like the development is complex and multidisciplinary. The processes are crazy. The demand for speed, the demand for cost, the demand now for supply chain, so everything is crazy. But I think the new normal comes in the place that what was established as a PLM just doesn't meet the requirement. Because if you take the recipe for PLM, and this is again single source of truth, let's install the system in a company, let's set up processes. So all this setup, it doesn't fit the reality. Because just think about an average PLM system, and let's take all these top 4 like biggest PLM contributors like DS, Siemens, PTC, and let's add ERAS to this because they kind of grow into this now. So all their setups are the same. It's like a SQL database in the middle with a little bit application stack, with a variety of object browsers, sitting on top in the company, struggling to get people attention beyond engineering. So that's more or less what we have. So I call it new normal. If you go to outside in the world, you will see companies with their relationships, multiple companies working together. You get design contractors, you get different type of suppliers and everything. So show me a single system that knows how to define processes across multiple OEM and suppliers. And, for example, in automotive, tier 1 supplier has a process with OEM all the time. So who can support it and how? So I think the new normal is that we are learning that the reality is different from what PLM system is capable to do. But on the other side, companies are struggling with complex requirements. So I think it's a kind of redefinition of PLM is coming now. And cloud is pure technology, but it will play a role because what cloud will be able to do, like traditional systems would be able to do.
And like I think I've seen that too. Like I've seen a massive. There's not a whole lot of debate anymore that PLM for complex products is necessary. I think the implementation a lot of times is the question. Like I just came back from PTC's user conference, and most of the debate was about how best to do this, not should we do this. And I think that reflects the industry. My question for you is like thinking about what you just said and like this redefinition. Which trends do you think are most important? There's a push towards best in breed versus all in one. There's cloud, there's SaaS, there's like really investing in open architecture. They're bolting on other types of systems. Like, how do you think about which of those trends actually matter most in the redefinition?
Well, that's I don't think there are different trends here. I think the trend here is what you call companies are trying to figure out how to do it, and what is the best way. What is the best way to do it? If I think, for example, when I left Autodesk before OpenBOM and I was doing consulting, like there was a single question that people were asking me in 2015. So they contacted one question and said, "What is the best PLM system? Tell me, the Windchill, the SAW, Whereas, what's the best one? And again, this is the completely mistake to approach with the question, what is the best system? Because what do you do? Like what the problems that you're trying to solve? What is your legacy after all? And and then you can make a decision. What is the right system for you? Like if you are, equipment manufacturer, relatively small, like doing tons of work with the mainstream CAD systems like SolidWorks. So your decision, working with tons of design contractor suppliers. So your decision about PLM will be different if you defense manufacturer, spent last 20 years sitting in Team Center Enterprise. So the recommendation of how can you do it would be completely different. So I think the trend is that companies understand that they need to bring new technology in place, but they do not know how to do it. And they do not know how to deal with pressure of vendors, because look, no one wants to make a mistake, and mistakes in PLM decisions can cost you a career in a large company. You pick the wrong one, what you gonna do? So that's why everyone is trying to make those. That's why it's also decisions about PLM in the larger companies are taking years, because fundamentally nothing is changing for them. So they don't have a real incentive to change immediately, because there is no large PLM vendor in this world that will drop a customer. Some stupid things sometimes can happen, but in general, if you have one of the big vendors serving you with the hundreds of thousands of seats, no one will do anything to you. They will support you. So you have system in place. Then you decide your long-term move, where to move. And that takes time, and that takes a decision to make and agree. Two engineers, at least 5 opinions about how to do. Multiply it with the different number of people how to do it, and you had all these meetings and everything. But what I think the real trend that I see that is taking some shift is that thinking about what is a platform. PLM vendors for a very long time consider it to sell what they do as a platform. And that was like, take the Siemens platform, or take the SAW platform, or take PTC platform, or Ares platform. I think there is a mismatch between how vendors see themselves as a platform and how customers see them as a platform, because I think they see what PLM vendors do more as a services today. I mean, not services like software as a services, okay? No matter what has it packaged, okay? Different cloud, doesn't matter. But see this as a services, and they are building their technological stack. And customers are building their technological stack, and they filling slot of services. So, and that would be a very interesting thing, because that's change the center of gravity of the implementation. So a company will be saying, okay, so Amazon is my platform. Like all my ITs, all my servers on Amazon. And that's a change. Okay, so it's changing heavily in the last 5 years. So now Amazon is a platform. I want to see what services I can get on Amazon and how they will be interplaying together. So that's a change of center of gravity will position PLM as a service providers on the platform. And that's I see as a trend, because in this case, the PLM companies will stop coming in the position, we are center of universe, and like everything is surrounding, and they will be more judged by how the interoperability or how these services can interplay with each others. And you think about this, for example, it's completely not PLM. Think about machine learning services. So you can put machine learning services on Amazon, and do a lot of good stuff for your company. Some of them will come out of the box, some of them will come as implementation. So start thinking about this as a PLM. Okay, I run bunch of stuff as a company, and now I need some, I don't know, I need EBOM to MBOM process. Okay, so can I bring the service that can do it for me? So can I plug in this service into what we do and combine it with all other stuff we do? So I've seen you probably, I don't know if you've seen my blog about this, but this was very interesting thing was done by Mercedes-Benz cars. So they published an article about how they would like to interplay between different services. So I think that's the trend. I think that's the difference. So let's shift from service from this is the single platform to services.
So like I've seen that as well. And the question I'd ask you though is, you said like the vendors see themselves differently than the customer. Like, how long do you think it's going to take for the vendors to realize this? Because what I'm seeing is that some vendors are like a little more open to this mindset because it hurts their business potentially, or it could help their business, right? Like if you look at the GitHub ecosystem for software developers, they took a very different stance early on. Salesforce, very different stance early on. They wanted to be able to take, they are sort of a platform for sure, but they let you build things into it. And then if you look at, like you just described, AWS or Azure, like companies are going pretty hard on that. And like our company, for example, is built on one of those stacks, and we plug in the right tool for the job. But that's so different than what the PLM vendors are used to. Like, do you think they get on board with the big companies, or do you think there becomes like a bit of a battle between what the customer wants, which is open, interoperable, like, connect across supply chain, and then what the vendor is willing to do, which is like build more services into their own technology and kind of lock you in?
I think some vendors are more listening than others. I don't want to go now with names. First of all, they can speak by themselves better than I, because I'm after all sitting outside. But I think vendors are taking notes about what is happening for sure. Also, I think they are working on some of those things because on the other side, customers, the level of stickiness in this space is incredibly high. I think it's even more than in ERP space. Because in ERP nowadays, they have this multi-layer ERP architectures when you can hide all the ERP and create kind of meta ERP. So they have these ideas. But in PLM, I think the level of stickiness is incredible. And if you think about the transition out of existing system, it's very, 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 very hard and very rarely happening. So it's more that those systems are piling like one on each other. There are merger and acquisitions. They're thinking how to coexist. So I think vendors legitimately have time. So they know this because they talk to these customers quite a lot. And again, I'm talking about large companies. So the situation with the smaller companies is completely different. But then at that place, PLM doesn't exist as a substance. Okay,
So it's interesting, because I think I felt that too. Like in the last couple of months, we've been talking to vendors, and the question's all about, when are you going to the cloud? I mean, there's three approaches here. One is you switch to a cloud PDM PLM. Two is you wait for your vendor to go to the cloud themselves, which they all have something in the works, and they all have announced something recently, or are working towards it. And the third is you bolt on things that are in the cloud and eventually get there. Most likely, it's some combination, I think, of 2 and 3. But like for the big companies, do you see many of them switching to like a cloud first PLM, or most of them waiting for, say, if they're with Dassault or PTC or Siemens, to build their cloud product and then transition with them? Like, where do you see the big companies moving? It sounds like probably the latter.
You're asking about big industrial companies, not vendors.
Big industrial companies,
yeah, big industrial companies. I think the cloud is less relevant for them at this point. I mean, all debates about the tenancy, and I think it's irrelevant because large companies are so much uneducated internally, so their IT is just starting to adopt the cloud model, and for them means cloud. Okay, so I get my Dell rack before, and now I get my virtual servers on Amazon. Great, now I'm in the cloud. So I think for most of them, you will see the demand that all the same stuff that worked for them before, and they had to maintain and operate and upgrade, they will demand it now from vendors. That's why you see, and all large PLM vendors basically comply. So you see, Ares called it Enterprise SaaS. Very interesting name, but that's fine. So Enterprise SaaS basically said, let's host Ares for customers on Azure, and then there is a Windchill. I think Windchill Plus it's called now. So it's basically the same. And then there is a Team Center X, which is more or less the same, how to host existing Team Center. So I think they go with this idea, and the most important thing that they bring to all ITs is the pain of upgrade. So they say, all right, so you pay us more to make it a service, we will take care of the upgrades. I think that's how cloud looks for today, to me, for the large vendors. Now, the interesting part is that what I just said doesn't solve fundamental problems, but they are not there yet. Because you think about, if you have Team Center installation that wasn't upgraded for the last 10 years, or you have some processes not supported, which hurts you the most? Okay, the first one, right? So let's first of all figure out how we get rid of these painful upgrades. Processes, let's come later to these processes. Maybe in 2-3 years we'll figure out. First of all, like we have it upgraded, we can support the last environment. We don't have security risks. The large companies are concerned. If you go in their public reports, they're concerned about security and vulnerability. So how to get rid of these unsecured servers that stack in our backyard because we cannot upgrade them? Oh, here's the cloud. So that's a large thing. Again, nothing about effectiveness, no about processes, nothing about nothing. They just not there. They just not there. That's why everything goes very slow for them, and that's not where the innovation will come from. And they pay tons of money to large vendors.
Yeah. We just at the conference recently on PT's users, the upgrading train was like by far the number one pain point for those people. You heard about it all the time, right? The biggest fear of the cloud was, what does this mean, right? What does this mean for the transition? And I agree with you, like that is such a hard problem to maintain, but definitely a top focus. I'm curious on that statement alone. So like we've got a lot of work to do to get into the cloud before we even really leverage the full benefit at the PLM level. There's obviously things you can do in the meantime to get some benefit from the cloud. When do you think PLM in the large companies is mainstream cloud? Like how many years, if you were looking into a crystal ball, like how many years do you think it actually takes to get all the majority of mainstream large enterprises in the cloud on PLM? Like how many? Give me your best guess.
No, I'm not playing this crystal ball game. I'm sorry. Some of the people that I know quite like 20 years ago said that 2D drawings will disappear. I still talk to these people. That's quite an embarrassment. It's I think the question is not how they will come to cloud. I think it's a different question. Is that how long will it take them to start adopting new services that come complementary to what they do? I think that's a slightly different perspective. Like leave them alone with what they do now. It's replacement of those systems will not happen overnight. and probably will not bring a lot of value, in immediate value. I think the value will come from understanding of the data and the establishing of intelligence about what they can do with data. So I got recently discussed the topic of what is the system of intelligence and how it will come, and that can be that can take some directions in the companies that can solve them painful problem. Like, just think about impact analysis. A painful problem when you do change orders. So, for example, I think in your keynote you brought this. I forget what was the unit on the Tesla tree that you said that takes a lot of time to talk about. But when you want to change something, so it takes people to gather information to understand the impact. Again, this information is hard to get. So before you will get your change order signed, you will need to get this information collected. You will need to get this information analyzed by people. So getting this information by itself, it goes much beyond 3D models and PDFs and everything. That it's just about the business. And because the products are interconnected and dependent, and they sold as a service, so you have some equipment in the field, and when you want to change the design, then you impact it. So I think getting into these data services, that's my take. That's will go beyond existing PLM implementation, and that will be value delivered on top of this. And then eventually we will come to the point where fundamental stacks of data management stacks will start transforming, but that would be the second stage, because they can coexist. They can be hidden. Again, if everyone will play well from the interoperability standpoint, and business models will adapt. And then one day you will find this piece of software that called old PLM, and people will say, "What if I will disconnect it? What will happen?" And then they disconnect it one day, and they say, "Huh, nothing happened," because all other services already operating and giving us it what is needed. But this is the IT transformation that takes people. Stop asking the question how to put all the data in a single database, because it's probably already not needed and will not be needed. But just to take this service approach and bring more and more and more. And I think low code is more or less goes in this direction, just by starting to bring those services handmade, and then someone will introduce them out of the box. But so I would not sign for any number of years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's fair though, because if what you just said makes a lot of sense, right? I think there's a diminishing return on some of the things you can change with your system of record today, right? You've already invested 30, 40 years in it. There's ways you can make the upgrade process better and the rest, but it's like what you just said, like a system of intelligence or a system of engagement, or like how do you get more out of an effective display with your team is like where I think teams are moving. And that's where the cloud is easier, right? There's not such a big switching cost to actually make that change. Like we saw when we started Collab, a massive pushback on the cloud. Like, I mean, massive. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It was like always this big red alarm in the room. And then COVID happened, and I think everyone kind of started changing their mind about being open to it. But what you said probably 10 minutes ago is that they weren't really sure how to leverage it. Like they're making their first switch into the cloud now. So I think giving easy ways to do that and bolting on tools that have like an immediate value is super important, because then people start behaving differently, which then has like what you call like the second phase. The second phase starts to happen organically, because if you just switch your PLM, forget about the cloud altogether. Switching your PLM in a big company is a gigantic undertaking. I spoke to probably about a Fortune 500 company. They had a $200 million budget just to switch their PLM. $200 million. And that's like, and I think they said it was a 4 or 5 year time window to do it. There was a team of 80 people working on it. It was wow. They were in year two of this program, and they just got word that they were getting parked. Like, hold on now, economy's tanking. We can't do this, right? But like that's like the magnitude of investment needed for some of these things. And I think what you're saying is right. I mean, you've seen a ton of this success, so like with OpenBOM. Like you've got, I remember the little map on your website that showed all the people using OpenBOM all around the world. But it's really cool, right? Like I think it's a transformational difference in how people behave. And there's so many more technologies coming out now. And what you said about, building the services approach, everything is open and can connect, and putting it in there is a really impactful thing long term for the end user and for the business. Um, I'm curious on the front of like system of intelligence. We talk about systems of engagement. There's a whole bunch of those, and like systems of record. How do you see like each of those pieces fitting together? Is it really what you said? Like it's a layer on top of the system of record that's there, and we focus on making those engagement layers and intelligence layers better. Like, how do you see that being successful? And how should companies think about leveraging technologies that are not PLM?
Yeah, I don't see it as I don't see it as a layer because each time someone will come with these names, and again, those are fancy names. Let's just agree about this. So there is no real like system of engagement or system of intelligence. Like, I remember it was who was one of the CRM systems? I think Workday. So when Workday was started, they presented the new type of system in CRM, and they said now it's a new type of system. It's called system of engagement. By the way, I think it was 15 years ago. But and then this when people are coming with these new names, it usually means that we did something different from what was done before. But because the marketing needs an urgent needed to somehow to differentiate it, so we find a name, because if you cannot find a name, it's very hard to sell. So people
Using
just it's just very very hard to like we're doing something better. That's how you call. So it's so I but I think it's more characteristics of what is going on. And so when I'm saying system of intelligence, I'm saying that there is something that can give a better intelligence to people in the company with regards to the data. So, for example, I'm going to buy something. I'm pulling just my phone with the Amazon application, and I already know that if I need to buy it in the store, and or I can order it through Amazon, and it will be delivered to me. So it's an instant decision. So think about the same instant decision when you drive your car, and Waze is telling you, or Google Maps telling you, I found a new route. You want to take this one and pay $1 toll, and you take you 30 minutes faster. Or also no. So now those are kind of elements of system of intelligence that needs to come to manufacturing, to design. I'm designing a part. I'm placing a part in my design, and I'm making decisions early in the process. And everyone loves to bring those charts. Oh, you're making early decisions, so making many less mistakes. But what data you can bring at this point that will help to a person to make right decision, like instant cost roll up based on the real time price information. So that's what OpenBOM does. So if that helps you to make a decision, oh yeah. So can it make it the decision better? Of course. Is it the new type of intelligence that you're getting? Oh, you're putting not certified part in this design. So bomb is you're getting some alerts. So those are elements of a system of intelligence that everyone is looking how to get to make your work, to make your actual work smarter. Everything that you do that makes people smarter is highly appreciated. Doesn't matter if it's a horizontal layer, vertical layer, or some, I don't know, building blocks. Okay, that's because people like to be smarter, and if you help them to be smarter, then it will be coming. If that's something that they don't know, that's how it will happen.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. I mean, there's such a big blue ocean of applications here in the manufacturing world. because there's so many problems. What you just said on the bomb side, for example, is a great use case. Like if you're looking at teams doing cost reduction, for example, imagine how nice it would be if you could go tell them, across other product lines, here's what we found in those products that we pulled cost out of, or looking at supply chain, here are things we're duplicating in parts and the rest. There's so many more applications like that. It goes so beyond it. We actually, we worked with a company who wanted to use the data from their design reviews to figure out how to train and hire people, because they were finding that every person they hired was scaling up quickly would make the same mistakes, but they didn't know exactly which ones. There's just too much data. Built a little system to say, okay, here are the top 3 problems that happen when you bring someone on. And that data in real time was updating. And they were like, okay, here's what we need to train people on. It became part of their academy materials. And now that problem has been largely erased, right? By just using that data that's already sort of in the way you work, which is sort of the beautiful part of it all.
The challenge in this process is to fuse all this information together and convince customers to make a switch. That's why, like you said, there are many dots on OpenBOM. Like what we work with medium-sized companies, you go to larger companies, everything takes longer. That's where the biggest challenge for them, because their decisions are crazy slow. The adoption level is very, very, very careful, and the customers are making all these decisions very slow. But the time will be coming after them, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of conclude this, so you think about where we are, where we're going. If you were to give people who are in these companies thinking about their tool stack and their systems advice, what would be your one piece of advice you'd give them about how to think about PLM and the surrounding ecosystem for the next few years?
Yeah, I would leave them with 3 things. So first of all, stop thinking about the system and start thinking about information flow. So data and information flow. That's the first thing. So second, start thinking about critical problems and how you solve them. That sounds obvious, but that can bring a use case. It's always and something that don't do or stop doing. Stop thinking how you need to take all your data and put it in one system. That hurts your brain, and it hurts the entire progress, because it's such a painful and undertaking. Just thinking, stop thinking about systems, start thinking about data flows and value out of this use cases. I think that will turn the conversation from let's how we will get rid of this database and bring another database into conversation how we getting more value of data that will make our processes more efficient and our products better, and how we better serve customers. So that's something that can help the most, rather than just solving another problem with another organization of database, and which database is better. That's just not productive.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've been harping on with our team even is let's not build features, let's build solutions, right, to problems. Because you can build, you looked at all the tools that are in the space, there are millions of features, and some of them are very helpful and some of them are not. And if you expand that beyond the product, that's the same way the tooling is built, right? It's a lot of features and technologies and cool things, but there's other day-to-day problems that are costing millions of dollars that no one's even talking about, and because they're hard, right? And I think the reframing the problem and value focus is probably the main thing we've been trying to help customers with today, is just think that way, because it changes the whole conversation. Because if you're trying to think about how does all of your data from PLM get inside of OpenBOM or Colab or another tool, you're fundamentally in the wrong spot. You should not want all of your data to come inside of there. You should want it to live there and pull the piece you want, right? Pull the piece you want, connect it together nicely. Like you said, get the data flow right, not try and just replicate what you're always doing. And I think that's brilliant, though. I appreciate it, man. And thank you so much for joining us here today on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. Good talking to you as always, Adam, and see you around. Okay. Thank you.